Hello, and welcome to Restoring Hope, the podcast of the Missionaries of the Precious Blood. I'm your host, Patrick Higgins, and I am excited today to welcome Brother Ton Sison, a theologian, educator, writer, and vowed religious of Missionaries of the Precious Blood. Brother Ton serves as a professor of systematic theology and culture and is the Vatican Council II Chair of Theology at Catholic Theological Union in Chicago. Brother Ton's work bridges the theology, culture, film, and lived faith with a deep commitment to contextual, intercultural, and aesthetic approaches to theology. Brother Ton is the author of several books, including The Art of Indigenous Enculturation, Grace on the Edge of Genius, a groundbreaking exploration of how diverse cultures find the theological meaning in their own artistic and spiritual expressions. He's also the author of other works that engage cinema, liberation, and spirituality. Brother Ton's life journey from metropolitan Manila to academia and ministry embodies a theology lived on the margins and in solidarity with cultures around the world. Please join me in welcoming Brother Ton Sison. Brother Ton, thanks for being our guest today.
Thank you for having me. I'm happy to join you today in this conversation.
Absolutely, we're thrilled to get to know you and to get to know your ministry. So I guess let me start out with just a general question. What first drew you to write The Art of Indigenous Enculturation, and what does enculturation mean to you?
That's a perfect way to start. Dive
Thank
right
you.
in. Well, let's begin with the first question. Why is that resonant for me? Why is that important for me? Well, I was born and raised in the Philippines, in Manila, Philippines, which is a country in the global south, as you know. And it's also a country that's had, well, 40 years of Hollywood and 300 years in a Spanish convent, which means
Oh,
that
okay.
we were under Spain for almost 4 centuries and under the United States for 40 years. So when I say that, it's bittersweet. There's a lot of gifts from the Spanish colonization. They brought Catholicism to us. And there's also an element of gift in the American colonization. Education is primarily of the American standard, and English is another contribution to Filipino culture by the US. However, there's also an undertone there of, well, oppression. You're under foreign power, then some of your rights will be trampled upon, and you are subservient to another culture in your own home country. So that history is something that we carry with us, consciously or not. So as a theologian, who's also a theologian who does theology in context, that experience figures into the way I think and the way that I approach theology. Theology is not for me primarily an ivory tower activity. You know, you're locked inside your room, surrounded by books, and coming out with ideas that nobody understands but yourself. That's
Okay.
an older model, a more traditional way of understanding theology. But theology, especially how we do it at CTU, is very experiential, very very cognizant of context, cultural context, and the influences of culture. And that's why I was attracted to enculturation, because enculturation, well, I guess we're pouring into the next question. In very simple terms, I'd like to offer a formula. It's A plus B equals C. That's almost, a child can understand that almost. It's A is the gospel message, B is the local culture, and C is a third thing. Now, if I were to break that open, the gospel message enters into a culture and invites dialogue with the culture. The gospel message, as we know, is salvific. It offers uh, Jesus Christ as the way into a fuller humanity and everything that we understand about what salvation means. On the other hand, the culture, presuming there's an openness to the gospel, offers its own native genius so that the gospel is understood in a meaningful way for them. And what results from this dialogue is a third thing. That third thing is it's the best way to understand this is it's like a marriage. Okay. The marriage between the gospel and the best of a culture results in a third thing, which is a blending of gospel values, the gospel message, with the best that the culture can offer. For example, the way cultures relate uh, with each other, with when members relate to each other in a particular way. There's something special about that, especially where I come from. It's a very relational and communitarian culture, and that reflects on the way in which we understand the gospel. The gospel is not so much an individualistic perspective. Rather, it's a community experience. And that gels very well, actually, with the idea of communion, which is, of course, very central in the way we understand salvation and the message that Jesus brings. So I hope that's clear enough because I can talk the whole day about the many
No, no,
dimensions, but
Brother
I'm
Tom.
trying to digest it.
No, no. So let me ask you: can you kind of give us your background and what brought you? What was your journey into the congregation, the Missionaries of the Precious Blood? And obviously, you grew up in the Philippines, but you're here in the United States now. So can you give us a kind of a brief chronology of your own journey?
Sure. Well, I'm going to make this as short as possible, but I grew up as someone who was raised a Catholic, cradle Catholic. A lot of my experiences had been in, within that very rich experience of Catholicism in the Philippines. If you have some idea what Catholicism is in the Philippines, we're, I think, right now the fourth largest Catholic country in the world. And it's a very Catholic culture in the sense that Catholicism infuses into daily life and all the rituals and activities related to Catholicism are just part and parcel of the way we live. As a child, my grandmother brought me to, I don't know if you've ever heard of this, it's called Simbang Gabi.
I have
It's the
not.
Okay, it's nine devotional masses that leads to Christmas. Now,
Okay.
what's special about these masses is that it's a mass that happens at 4 a.m. in the morning. So you have 9 mornings at 4 a.m. where you wake up early, go to the mass until Christmas, where there's a big celebration, like a culminating big celebration at Christmas. So imagine this, I'm like 9 or 10 years old. My grandmother wakes me up at like 3 a.m. for 9 mornings
Wow.
to drag my sleepy self to a
Yes.
to a mass at 4 a.m.
Yes.
and and as a child, of course, what really stuck to my memory are, you know, I call it a pilgrimage of the senses. The way my senses were engaged in the mass, the smell, the scent of candles, the sight of the many. If, I'm sure you're familiar with more traditional Catholic churches and all the iconography inside the church, all the people. Most masses in the Philippines are bursting at the seams. We don't have like a mass with just 12 people in a huge building. That never happens where I come from. It's like bursting at the seams up to the outside of the building. It's like
Really?
people, yeah, it's a
Oh,
very devout country. And that's the kind of environment I grew up in, and that made a very deep impression. So I had a religious sensibility early on. To cut a long story short, my theological sensibility deepened further in 1986. It's called the People Power Revolution. I don't know if you've heard of it, but it's when a 20-year dictatorship in the Philippines was toppled through largely a peaceful prayer movement led by the Cardinal of Manila, whose name was Jaime Cardinal Sin. Just to give you a little irony there, Cardinal
yeah.
Sin.
That is ironic. Yes, absolutely. Okay.
So he called for uh, for Catholics everywhere to pour out into the streets and pray together. And believe it or not, that peaceful revolution toppled a 20-year-old dictatorship. I was a student at that time, and that opened my sensibility into understanding that, there is social transformation in someone's faith journey. It's not like
Absolutely.
a privatized way of, as long as I'm hidden in my room reading the Bible and singing, that's faith. Well, early on, I got formed into the idea that faith can translate to social change and transformation. And so that led me to
Absolutely.
do.
That's very well said, and it's especially relevant today.
Mhm. Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, we live in a world of contradiction, and all the more reason that the gospel has to have meaning and should echo into reality. And that sort of drew me to theological studies. That's when things got a little bit more serious for me.
Okay.
And I did my MA in the Philippines. And then, to cut a long story short, I got a scholarship to the Catholic University of Nijmegen in the Netherlands, where I did 4 years of doctoral studies. And there I met this guy named Robert Schreider, CPPS.
Okay.
Bob Schreider was an alumnus, a very notable alumnus of the Catholic University of Nijmegen. And we connected very well. He was one of my, supervisors for my doctoral research. One thing led to another. The thing is that he never bannered CPPS to me. It's typical CPPS. We're not good at selling ourselves.
Right. And you're, yeah, absolutely. You're very humble, um, way of apostolic life. And just for our readers, our listeners, excuse me, who may not be familiar, CPPS actually is the Latin for Missionaries of the Precious Blood, correct? Yes. Okay.
So anyway, it was me who inquired about, what community Bob Schreider might belong to. I found it, interesting as an academic that someone of Bob's stature can be a member of a religious community, that there's room for a ministry in education. And also, I was very much attracted, as I would learn later, of the call for reconciliation, which is really central to the charism of the missionaries of the precious blood. So those are the things that sort of draw me, and that became a bridge for me to reach Dayton, Ohio.
Okay. Glamorous state in Ohio. Absolutely. Absolutely. So, Brother Tom, let me ask you, just in terms of your writings, what stories of cultural encounters most changed your understanding of indigenous faith expressions?
Mhm. Well, there's a notion that when you're an academic, you're up there preaching down on people and with some kind of access to exclusive knowledge that has nothing to do with real life, which is farthest from the truth. What drew me is the humility of people who are not schooled theologically, but have one theologian calls it a Christology of the inarticulate. And this doesn't mean like a pejorative or something that looks down on people, but rather a more nonverbal, non-systematic way of understanding theology. It's a theology on their feet. It's a daily practice. It's a rhythm of their life. It's a way of for them to make sense of their relationships with each other, with their community, and with God. So it's a very real, concrete way, and a humble way, because they don't make great claims about what they know. Rather, they live one day at a time. In the day to day pilgrimage of their lives, they encounter God. So for me, that was an eye opener, and certainly something that I uh, was very much drawn to. There must be something here that can also enlighten us and widen our horizon on how we understand our own faith journey. They have much to offer.
Okay.
And that's why my research had taken me to a lot of sites in the global south where I try to immerse myself in the day-to-day experience, the devotional life of people. My research journey has taken me, for example, to Mexico, to Vietnam, to of course back to the Philippines, and other places where usually these are non-conventional sites for research. And when I say research, that's also another thing I wanted to clarify. It's not like I'm this professional who drops by and gathers data.
Okay.
It's more of an immersion, and my it's also a pilgrimage for me. I enter into their world and I try to immerse myself in the reality, and from there reflect on what does this mean theologically, and how can I bridge this with theological studies. So that's been in a in broad strokes, in broad paint brushes, what I do.
So, Brother Ton, your work often connects theology and film. So, what makes cinema a media? I'm sorry. How can I? What makes cinema a meaningful theological medium?
Yes, that was a research interest early on, prior to getting into enculturation seriously.
Hmm.
I did a lot of studies and research on film, and the way in which that sort of figures in my own journey is that, well, I consider film as one of my first spiritual directors. When
Okay.
I was a younger person back in Manila, I watched films and found that films open a portal for me to enter into a world where I can reflect on my life and my faith, and that gave me some clarity about the meaning of why I'm even here, a sense of purpose. And of course, I don't mean every single film that I watch.
Right.
uh, at best, there are some films really that are modern day parables, as Pope Francis would call art in general, and also film. So yeah, these films are have accompanied me in the journey, and that started a more interest. And prior to that, I don't know how to make this real short, but I have a sort of creative advertising background. I worked in before religious life and theology. I worked in a multinational advertising
Oh,
agency.
really? I did not know that. Okay.
Yeah. I worked for BPDO worldwide, and I was a writer. So these interests all sort of dovetail with what I did at that time, and that started it. And in fact, I was really serious with film, that I wrote a script that got produced into a film. And guess what the topic of the film was?
What?
Simbang Gabi, the 9 mornings.
Oh, really? Okay. Okay.
that
Interesting.
yeah, that I it was a very meaningful time of my life, and films still figure in my current work, but not front and center. They're still part of the bigger the bigger picture of what I do.
Is there a film that was particularly inspirational to you?
Have you got 2 hours to spare?
We do actually. I'm wondering if our listeners do. But yeah, is there is if
No,
you had to pinpoint one? Um,
absolutely. If well, this might not be a unexpected choice for some people, but 2001: A Space Odyssey by Stanley Kubrick, 1968 sci-fi. It's a seminal sci-fi film, which means that a lot of the present day sci-fi are derivative of the many things that this film had contributed to film studies in general. It's a multi-layered film. It's very complex. Some people find it, you know, it induces sleep. For
really?
some people,
Okay,
it's
I have not
demanding of.
seen it.
I've yeah, but to those who know where to look, it's certainly a very transcendent experience, and that's for me, I still haven't exhausted what the film means. I'm still very much interested, and I've also written about that particular film. It got released a few years ago at NCR, and right, just a few weeks ago, I just watched it again on the big screen. Fortunately, it was shown here in Chicago again, so I never get tired of it.
So
That's
I
just
assume that
one.
every time you watch it, you find something else.
Mm-hmm.
Do you
Yes, yes, yeah. It
find additional
invites,
meaning in it? Okay.
yeah, deeper reflection each time.
Okay, well, since we're speaking about that, since we're speaking, let's talk about your earlier books. You like World Cinema Theology and the Human. How does that influenced your more recent works?
Hmm. Oh yeah, because I don't just depend on written text as my sources for reflection. Aside from my own experiential immersion in different cultures, I also look into the arts as a way of expanding the view of research. And films always figure in my chapters in my recent books, and yeah, they
Okay,
have.
so
Yeah, go
so
ahead.
no, okay, and I'm kind of jumping all over the place here because I find this fascinating. In what ways can theology be made accessible and relevant to people beyond academia?
Hmm. It's I'm fortunate to be in a place like CTU, which is a graduate school of theology and ministry. So those two things are not. It's not an either or. We're expected to do both theology and ministry. So for me, what that means is I write for a general audience. I'm a contributor, well, not a like a regular columnist, but I contribute to National Catholic Reporter. I've been doing that for many, many years now.
Okay.
And as you know, I shared my last summer. I shared my piece with you, and
Yes.
I also write for U.S. Catholic. And aside from that, I do retreat work. The most recent and memorable one was the retreat I did for our Vietnam mission. That was a year and a half ago. And yeah, and the theme of that retreat was enculturation. And I used film as a way to communicate with a non English speaking group. Can you believe it? A retreat for a non English speaking
Yeah.
group.
How did that
And
go?
the language that we understood commonly was the
Uh-huh.
language of film. So there you go. I think
Yes.
I'm giving you an idea of how all these figure somehow, even in another context, in the context of ministry. So,
So how has the precious blood spirituality shaped your academic and theological work?
oh, that's a good question. Reconciliation is specifically relevant to what I do. In my latest work, I try to explore, areas that have not been explored previously, how cultures that come together in enculturation can be understood as well as reconciliation, cultural reconciliation. For example, when we talked about when we talk about cultures that have been previously colonized, the kind of Catholicism that they have actually was introduced to the culture alongside colonization. So it's not like a very neat way of bringing the message to the culture
Okay.
because it was mingled with the political, it was mingled with colonization. There's a lot of cultural violence that had happened in the global south. For example, Mexico. Mexico was particularly has a history that was marked by bloodshed, violence. Uh, Whole peoples in Mexico were annihilated by the conquistadores, in
Hmm.
the conquest. And yet, what do we have now? A predominantly Catholic culture. Mexico is the second largest Catholic country in the world. And yet, in their collective memory, the colonial ghost still exists. And you
How
see
so?
that in many ways. For example, the way in which people understand themselves can sometimes be affected by a what we call a colonial mentality, that even after the colonization, you kind of absorb the experience of the past, that
Okay.
you are subservient, you're not good enough, you are underrepresented, your voice is not heard. There's still that, and actually, that is very pronounced here in the U.S. when we have a diversity of cultures. There are some cultures that are underrepresented, and a lot of it too would go back really to the self understanding of people and what they feel and what they believe to be, you know, their worthiness for a fuller humanity. In Christian theology, the most basic way of understanding a human being is really found in Genesis, that every human being, male or female, is made in the image and likeness of God. That translates really to, yet you have as a birthright, a innate human dignity that needs to be respected, developed, and that needs to flourish in your life.
Do you are there trends or opportunities that you see for intercultural theology in the church today?
Oh, plenty.
Okay.
Absolutely. The church is much more than what we call a suburban theology,
Okay.
that you are in an enclosed neighborhood in the United States, and for you, the church is that. Well, if you widen the aperture a little bit more, it's a world church. One way of expressing Catholicism in a given culture may not be the same way as Catholicism is expressed elsewhere. So that diversity it's exhilarating because it means that there's one God, one faith, but many expressions of it. And that can only enrich our own understanding, that there is a reality greater than ourselves that can also contribute to our enrichment as human beings. And I think that's an important piece. Catholicism is a world religion. It is not a local religion. It's universal. The very word Catholic means really connotes universality. uh, Catholicity is actually universality. So in this whole landscape of faith with so much diversity, going back to the my interest in enculturation,
Mm-hmm.
even within an underrepresented culture, there's a further underrepresentation when we talk about those who express their faith in popular piety. Popular piety is, as I mentioned earlier,
Mm-hmm.
is the theology of the grassroots in local cultures. Again, there's a tendency not to take popular piety seriously. It's
Explain that a little. Yeah. Can you delve into that?
sure. I'll give you a very concrete example. There's a huge celebration of the Black Nazarene, is what we call. As you know, Catholics are very iconographic. We
Mm-hmm.
believe in imagery. We believe in a sensory experience of faith. In the Philippines, there's this centuries old statue of Jesus Christ bearing a cross, who has dark skin, who has immense popularity among people who are more on the, I don't want to put this in a sort of pejorative light. So I'll just say that the grassroots, okay. And they have a way of, yeah, practicing their faith that is not relatable to those who are, the professionally trained
Mm-hmm.
theologians,
Right.
like you know who, and
Yeah.
those who claim to be educated and who are at a certain economic class. So that kind of a marginalized segment of society, and in the Philippines and many global South cultures, they're the majority, by the way. So their practices are not seen as mainstream, which means that they're not given due importance as
Okay.
a source for theological reflection. So,
Okay.
but it reminds me, I have a quote here from Pope Francis, and he says that popular piety is the opening of the memory of a people. To devalue that spirituality, to regard it as a secondary form of Christian life, is to forget the primacy of the action of the Spirit and the gratuitous working of God's love. So, Pope Francis himself, of course, was born and raised in Argentina. So he's
Hmm.
familiar with the global South and has a sensitivity. The word is sensitivity, really, as a sensitivity for those who practice faith in popular piety. It is not a less valid way of expressing faith.
Okay.
It is, in fact, it demands that we give it more importance because it is the faith of those who are vulnerable. And if you really take the gospel seriously, the gospel is first and foremost addressed to those who are hurting, who are vulnerable, who are poor.
Okay. All right. That is an apt explanation. That thank you very much. So, is there do art and ritual and everyday faith practices deepen theological reflection? Since we're talking about that, since we're talking about um, obviously what you just explained, that there are different practices of faith that are one is as valuable as the other. Is there anything that deepens that theological reflection? I don't know if I'm making sense.
Hmm. Yeah, no, it's an excellent question, and in fact, it's the heart of what I do. Again, to look beyond a textbook. There's a tendency in the West and in theological studies that if you ask them what theology is, they'll quote a page from a theologian. you know,
Okay. Yeah.
like a prominent theologian, like maybe Karl Rahner would say this in his book at, if you look at chapter X, page 2,
Yeah.
this is what theology is. But expanding the view and not being so insular in our thinking, we would go to where the wound is. How do vulnerable people understand God and faith? Why is faith relevant to their lives? So that's the question I want to ask. And if I want to ask that question and hope to find some answers, I cannot rely solely on professionally published theological work. I need to immerse myself in the experience of people who are practicing a certain faith based on, again, their daily lives, and try to reflect based on that starting point. And I have discovered that since they don't write books, that's
Okay.
not mainly what it's about, you'll find them expressing faith in a diversity of ways. For example, through artistic forms, through art, through rituals, and the mere fact of like simply lighting a candle is not simply lighting a candle, you know. What
It's an
does
expression of faith.
exactly? And if I were to use, and this is a borrowing of both the non-textual and also the textual. Bob Schreider himself, when he talks about in a book that he wrote called "In Water and in Blood," which is essentially a precious blood basic fundamental reading.
Hmm.
I love the way, and this is my paraphrasing of Schreider. Okay, I love the way he describes sacrifice because when you see people in need lighting a candle before an altar, that's a profound expression of a prayer that God helped them in their time of need. And that is a material expression of what we understand to be a sacrifice. Now, what is a sacrifice? Bob Schreider says sacrifice is what you do when words do not reach far enough.
Mm,
I thought that's profound, so profound, and it captures
it
the
is.
essence of why people do what they do in ritualistic ways, and as understood in yeah, that whole idea of sacrifice. So things like that really factor into the way I try to make sense of faith and theology.
Okay, has there been a question that any of your students have asked you that has influenced your own thinking?
When it's not so much a question, but when I'm confronted with the realities, the daily realities of a student as they try to grapple with some theological truths. For example, I have a struggling student, wasn't doing well in class, seems disinterested, and I was wondering why. It's like it looked like I was the most excited person in the classroom, but this student is so disinterested and not delivering. So I had a chat with the student, and he shared his own personal struggles, and he told me that aside from dealing with alcoholism, he's also had a very traumatic background and stuff like that. And it was a way for me to accompany the student, and it also changed the way that I'm thinking academic when in fact I should really also take seriously the experiences that the students bring to the classroom. And a lot of this as well comes from my ministry as a brother. Brother, the ministry of a brother is really shoulder to shoulder accompaniment with people. We're not confined to a sacramental ministry. And sometimes, and I don't really believe in this description, but sometimes we're described as those who are called to a blessed ambiguity. That's a very popular book on the brothers, a blessed ambiguity.
Yeah,
I don't like the word ambiguity because it
because
connotes like,
it's ambiguous.
yeah, exactly. It's like it doesn't say a lot about focus, calling,
Yeah,
direction, intentionality. It's like so random. It's like you're ambiguous. I'd rather call it a blessed diversity. That brothers are called to many kinds of ministry depending on gifts and discernment of the community. Like I'm in education, and some are called to do other things. Brother Juan is in leadership in the Bigger Precious Blood international leadership.
that's
Uh,
brother Juan Acuna, correct?
yes, Brother Juan Acuna, and many others. Brother Nick works in a farm, and we have a whole variety of ministries, and that for me helps me a lot because what I do at CTU really is an overflow of my identity as a brother. I am always a brother. And it's not like a cap I wear. It's the way I am and the way I live. So, in fact, I tell my students that, you really don't have to call me professor. For me, that's too, I don't know, it's just too professional, it's too distant. And I prefer really to be called brother. Well, for practical reasons, because a lot of people mistake me as a priest.
Okay,
I'm not kidding. It's like I get so many invitations to
I bet
celebrate
you
Mass,
do. Yeah, yeah.
and yeah, we're inviting you to a priest retreat. I always get that, so it's like so that's on one level, and the other level is that when they say brother Ton, that's not a position of authority, like brother. So I'm actually suggesting access. I'm suggesting that you can talk to me. We can team up for this. I can accompany you. There's more that we can explore in this journey. And that's been very, very helpful for me because this is not my career. This is my ministry. And it
It's your
comes from
vocation.
my being a brother. It's my
Right.
vocation. And even in writing books, this is part of my journey. It's organic to who I am. I'm not doing this uh, for the sake of doing it. You know what I mean?
Right. Well, Brother Tom, let me ask you one final question. Where can our listeners go to learn more about your ministry or to access your books?
Well, for ministry, they can always check the CTU website. Everything's there. All the programs we offer, and also I have a professional biography there if they want an idea of the books that I've written. And there's Amazon. I don't want to sell my book, but I'm very uncomfortable about selling my books.
Well,
That's not.
I don't think of it as selling. I think of it as an opportunity for readers to more explore your own spirituality and your own journey. So yeah, please, if Amazon is the way to go.
If they're really interested, um, I believe all my work is available on Amazon, on Kindle, and I'm very old school, so I really prefer to hold paper, you
Going
know.
to books, yeah, absolutely. I
But
agree.
it's available on Kindle for those who want that route. And yeah, my latest one, it's called Intercultural um, Epiphanies. That's what I titled it. It's coming out in the fall, so hopefully there will be activities where I have a chance to share it, and that's another way. But I also don't want to force this on people because it's a work of theology. So it's gonna be a demanding book. It's not gonna be sit back and relax kind of book.
Okay.
but uh, but I try my best to write in an accessible way as far as that goes. I try to be engaging. Let's put it that way. And so far so good. Especially those who are not just academics, but who are serious in deepening in their faith journey.
Well, this has certainly been an engaging conversation, Brother Ton. I really thank you for sharing your insight, your journey, and your passion for enculturation, theology, and the arts. I think that your perspective challenges us to see faith not as an abstract doctrine, but as a living encounter that's shaped by culture, story, and beauty. I hope that the wisdom that you've shared continues to inspire our listeners to embrace diverse voices and deep theological reflection in their own lives. Brother Ton, Brother Ton, thank you very much for joining us. This has been a stimulating conversation, and I hope to our listeners, please join us on our next episode and on continuing episodes of Restoring Hope.
I'm very grateful for the gift of an open door to share my story. And I hope that this ministry, your ministry of promoting precious blood, would bear more fruit.
Thank you, Brother Ton. Thank you very much. Very much appreciate you joining us.